Welcome. This is Dan Schneider for Still New York. And today's guest, we have Jessica Baker. Jessica is a serial entrepreneur, investment banker, technologist, a wonderful person. And she's the founder of several technology companies and solutions, including Adeline, Lives Align, and Line Signs. And she's also a certified matchmaker. And she has lived in New York City and she's currently in Los Angeles. She's originally from Texas, I believe.
Yes.
And so Jessica, please tell us about why you moved to New York, when you moved to New York, what was your first experiences there like? And, tell us about why you went to New York.
Sure. So when I graduated from Texas, my sister was actually currently modeling in New York. So I felt like, that was a really awesome place to be. And I got my MBA in finance. So I felt like that is the capital of the world. That's where I need to go. So I moved up right out of college to New York and started working at a hedge fund. And that was very exciting and quite a thrill. It was a huge culture change from Texas. I mean, I hate to say it, but I was not accustomed to sushi. That was a whole new development for me. I was all about, this must be salmonella poisoning or something. That can go to show you like how naive I was back in the day. But
my father-in-law said, I don't eat bait.
Now I love sushi, but at the time, it was a complete culture change. I had to adjust to the different accent and the weather, getting dressed for the weather and just, being in very close proximity to everybody. There was no need to have to learn how to parallel park in Texas or anything like that. And in New York, it's like, you don't even need a car. But then you have people like breathing on you on the train. So, just different things like that. It was a different experience, but it was perfect for me at the time because I was young. It was so exciting. You had anything that you possibly could want at any time of the day, and there was like everything delivered. There was always something open. It didn't matter what day of the week it was or what time it was. There's always something you could do that was fun.
Where was your office located? Was it down on Wall Street or was it in Midtown?
So I worked at, it was after 9/11 when I moved up there. So a lot of the financial companies moved to Park Avenue. Mm-hmm. So it was on Park Avenue. So I was like, when I first moved up there, I started living with my sister in Murray Hill. And then once I started getting some paycheck and stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a baller. I was like, you know what, I need to be right beside my office because I don't want to take a train anymore. I just want to walk to work. Mm-hmm. And so that's essentially what I did. I moved like 2 blocks away from my office. So I think I was like on Lexington and it was on Park. I was like, hey. It's all about convenience, right? You realize like, how wonderful it is to have so much convenience and comfort in life in different ways.
And you probably worked long hours also, so you didn't want to have to commute after a certain time. What kind of hours did you work as a young investment banker?
Well, when I initially started, I was an analyst at a hedge fund, and then I went into the fund of funds, and then I ended up going into management consulting. And then that kind of is what kind of it helped me get a flavor of entrepreneurship and stuff in different ways. So, and then that's kind of where I spun out into the technology entrepreneurship side. But my hours, basically it was always told to me that, if you won't do it, we'll find somebody else who will. So, that didn't feel warm and fuzzy with me, but, I did it. And I would literally be up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd do my gym. I'd be in the, I'd have a little bit of breakfast. I'd get dressed, shower, whatever, be in the office no later than 7.
7 a.m.?
Time that I had 7 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't actually have to be there until 8, but it's, if you weren't, it was the culture was that it was customary that if you weren't prepared for your day, then you weren't ready, and so, opportunities come to the prepared mind kind of thing. And
It was
so
very
if
competitive. You were up against, sharp elbows. Everybody's trying to get ahead.
everybody, yeah, it was exactly. So, so I was there at 7. My job officially started at 8, but I had to be, running by 8. I couldn't be walking with my coffee, I had to be running by 8. Typically I didn't take a lunch break unless it was at, I was talking to, somebody in like having a lunch meeting. I would either, have food brought in or, have lunch with the client or something. And then, I was there late and usually would have dinner with the client, or I would just stay till 8, 9 o'clock at night. And then I would always bring work home because, you have to be ready for the week, right? You have to be prepared. So typically I didn't have much of a life, but when I did have a life, I made it worthwhile. So, typically most people would go out in the city on Thursday night, because that's when most of the people in the city were going out. Typically on Friday and Saturday, you had a lot more people at those same locations. So just because of the people from some of the, from some of the other boroughs would come
The outer boroughs. Yeah, you don't want to mix with the great unwashed. I understand.
No. I mean, my sister is in Brooklyn, but like if you wanted to have like, your people that you hung out with all the time or whatever, without being, like
I'm the same way. I don't go. I think for Saturday night it's for losers. Only losers go out on Saturday night. Sunday night is a good night to go out because everybody else isn't out. Well, Monday night is
true.
the best.
You can always find something to do. There's always something to do. I mean, I personally love street fairs. So like when I wasn't working, there was always like some sort of street fair on Saturdays somewhere in the city. I would literally look at look online, like, where's the street fair this weekend? And that was like so my thing. It's not like I actually needed anything, but it was just like the energy. It was just fun and casual and easy, and it was just nice. People would take their dogs for a walk, and I don't know, it was my vibe. But Thursday nights we'd usually go out until like 4, and then
4 in the morning.
4 in the morning, yeah, because
you had to work at 7. You had to be at work at 7.
I know. I didn't sleep those nights. Those nights, sleep was not required. But I was like in my 20s, so I could handle it. Now I'd just be a ball of mush on the ground. It's just not possible.
So you were working. I mean, New York. E.B. White, a famous New York writer, once said or wrote that there are 3 types of New Yorkers. There are the people that were born there, that are used to the hustle and bustle, and they're that they're just stuck there, as most people don't move more than 50 miles from where they're born, right? Around statistically. And then there's the commuters, the people who take the trains the commuter trains from Connecticut or New Jersey or Long Island. And then there are the settlers, he calls them, the seekers, who come from all around the world to New York because they're chasing their dream. They want to be the best in whatever the field is that they're in. And they come to New York, and they're the ones, he says or said, that create the passion and the energy in New York, because they are bringing the energy with them because they're looking to succeed and to make their mark in the world. So you were in the third group. You were a settler, as he called it.
Yes,
right?
I'm a settler. And when I went to New York from Texas, I thought I was a halfway decent looking person. And I thought I was quite brilliant at the time, and I thought I had so much going for me, which I did, don't get me wrong. But then I got to New York.
And still do.
Yeah. But then I got to New York and I was like, wow, I'm so pretty. And then I looked around, I was like, oh my gosh, but these people are drop dead gorgeous. Like I'm just run of the mill. Like I'm all right. I mean, I'm not too hard on the eyes, And then I was like, okay, well, if I'm relatively intelligent, okay. But then I get to New York and there's people with like, photographic memory and like just recalling, I was just blown away. And so, within a week of being in New York, working in finance, I was like, so I'm not as pretty as I thought, and I'm not as smart as I thought, but I've got a good personality. So, hey.
Survival skills. Yes.
Yeah.
No,
It kept me humble. It kept me really humble. And I loved it because there's always something to learn. There's always something to do. And I'm just a constantly curious person. So it was perfect for me.
It's
especially
very
then.
competitive. It's very
It
competitive, and some people like it and some people don't, and then, so what made you leave, and how long were you there, and when did you leave? You came after nine
okay.
11 and how
Yeah,
long
I
did you
was there.
stay?
I came after 9/11. I was there about 9 years.
That's
I
a long
loved
time.
it.
9 years is
It's
a long time. Yeah.
yeah, it was good. I should have just rounded it off, to 10, but I honestly, I I was married at the time, and I had worked. I was working, and I wanted a change. I
So wait,
wanted
did
something.
you
I was
time
working.
out? Did
I was doing the whole hustle thing,
did
right?
you
And
get
I was just
married while you were
exhausted.
in New York, or were you married before you went to New York?
No, no, I got married once I was in New York.
Okay, so you met your then husband in New York.
I met him in New York,
Mhm.
and then I left him in New York.
You left him in New York. Did you
Yes.
forget him, or you just left him, or what?
No, no,
No,
we had a
I'm just kidding.
conversation. No, we had a conversation. We had a great conversation, actually. We were only married for like 3 years, and
Was he a banker as well? Was he on Wall
no,
Street?
he was an
No.
engineer. He's an
Oh, okay.
engineer, and he actually he wanted to pursue his dream. So he was initially, when I met him, he was working for somebody else, and then I was working in finance for making enough money for him to be able to pursue his dream to start his own engineering company. So that helped me kind of seeing the struggles that he was going through, helped me understand a little bit of that entrepreneurship drive. You have to do it all the time, like that has to be your passion, or you're just gonna burn out. And he was definitely very passionate about it. But ultimately, we were great for each other. And then we realized he came from a different culture and background than myself, and there's a lot of things that we didn't think about when we were getting married, like our future. So we just thought about, we love each other. This is amazing. We're having so much fun. This is perfect. We should get married. Yeah, that's a great idea. We're young. And so we ended up having a conversation about our future and kind of like our vision of what we wanted. And it just looked very different. His vision and my vision looked very different. And so, we decided, okay, well, this isn't, these are some deal breakers. And so, ultimately we went down together to the courthouse and filed for an uncontested divorce, and we're still friends. And so
No, that's
actually,
good. That's great. That's
if
great. But did he stay in New York, or is
he
he?
stayed in New York, yeah, he stayed in New York, and he's still there.
Mhm.
And yeah, he's happily remarried now, actually, to a mutual friend of ours. So longer story, but they both reached out and asked for my blessing. I was like, if you can both be happy, I'm happy for you, more power to you.
Did you give
So,
him
but yeah,
away at the wedding? Were you the one who gave him away? Because my
no,
mother offered to
no,
give my father
that would
away
just
for
be
his
way
second
too
marriage.
awkward and way too weird.
But that's great that you're still friends. That's so important.
Yeah, like
But
at the end of the day, you would want the person that you're married to at least have that fundamental foundation of friendship, right? Like,
yeah,
so, and that's what we had.
oh, that's
We just had a different picture for our futures, so it was fine.
and
It
so
was great for us to learn things.
how long? So you were there? At what point in the 9 years you were in New York did you get divorced? Was it like to
So
the
we were
night?
together for 4 years,
Mhm.
and then I left after like literally the same day. So we went down to the courthouse. We filed for divorce together. I went back to our apartment. I packed up like 3 suitcases, and we had 2 cats. So he kept one cat, I kept the other cat, and and I didn't, honestly, I wanted to leave New York because I knew it would be emotionally also hard for me, because I would go around and I would see the things that we did together and just have those memories. And I needed time, I needed time to just, digest that. And so I was like, keep whatever, I'm hopping on a plane and I'm leaving. And so he's like, okay. But
Where'd you go?
I ended up going back to New York every month, just because I couldn't, I couldn't, it was like a detox, I just couldn't just leave it. So, but yeah, I went to the airport. I was like, where should I go? What should I do? I could literally do whatever I wanted. And so my sister was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm at the airport thinking I'll go to Singapore. That seems like a lot of fun. I really liked it there. It was warm. They had great food. I could travel to anywhere on that side of the world on the weekend if I wanted to.
So
She
you
was
moved
like,
to Singapore from New York to Singapore?
that was my plan.
Oh, okay.
And then my sister talked me out of it. She's like, no, you are not doing that. You have to stay within the country. So I was like, okay, fine. So I came to California and I'm in Los Angeles. So here I am.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Well, and that's how we met. So I'm glad you did. And I'm
Thank
glad
you.
Janie
Thank
introduced
you.
us. And she's also an advisor. That's how I met Jessica, through her sister Janie. She's also a great marketer and networker and salesperson. And yeah, so this is the last question. It was like, because so many people during the pandemic have left New York, if they could afford to. I have, they call, there's the left behinds, the people that are still there who couldn't afford to move or didn't want to move for whatever reason, who have, long haulers who have actually toughed it out, because New York got hit so hard by the early stages of the pandemic. And then there's people who have left, whether it's to the Hamptons or to Connecticut or upstate New York or Florida or California. Um, so, but a lot of these people, and I'm a native New Yorker myself, and I have that addiction, and so I want to go back. Uh, but what would it take, do you think, for somebody like you to go back to New York? And would you do it on a temporary basis? Would you do it part-time? Would you do it for 2 weeks, a
Hmm.
week, a month? Just out of curiosity, if it was the better job offer, now that it's been a while since, things have cooled down with your ex, and
Yeah.
what would
So
it
now I
take?
have 2 children.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Congratulations. That was fast.
Since then,
That makes it a little more complicated, I
it's a
guess.
little more
Yeah.
complicated, but all positive. So I have friends in New York that have children there. And so just lining up the difference in the lives, right? So when I grew up, I could hop on my bicycle and I could go to my neighbor's house, right? And walk in their door and start playing with their toys, right? Um, and the experience that my friends have, living in the city is very different, right? So they can't necessarily do that, or their children can't necessarily do that. And so in some ways, I would love to, offer that to my children, to just have that, like community and feel of safety and security and just ease. Whereas New York, they offer different things, right? They have an amazing education system, and for private schools and stuff. They have a wonderful world of experiences that you can't get anywhere else. But it's, you sacrifice other things, right? So like that, like I was saying. So it just really depends on, right now my kids are young, they're 3 and 5. So I could totally see, going back to New York more permanently, but not until like, they're a little bit older, a little more self-sufficient, like middle school age at least. Because I do want to offer that exposure, and I do plan to go back there on a regular basis to enlighten them to the, just the world, and kind of like, share my experiences with them, because it's so unique, right? There's no place in the world quite like New York. And just kind of, make them aware instead of be as naive. I mean, it was wonderful to be extremely sheltered on some ways, but in other ways it wasn't as helpful, right? So, so just give them a little flavor on a couple of trips or whatever, or, whatnot. But what would it take to go back to New York? I'd probably say a little bit of time until my kid's a little bit older. And they could, I could literally have like real conversations with them.
Have they ever been to New York?
They've never been to New York.
So it'll be exciting. You could bring them to all the tourist places and historical, and the museums, and the the just cultural places, Broadway
Yeah,
shows.
I told them all about it. They definitely want to go, but I think I would for sure have to bring somebody to help me, because you can't go there by yourself as a single mom, right?
You could put them on leashes. That's what you do now in New York. People put their kids on leashes, like their pets. No, I'm kidding. I always thought that was terrible until I had a kid. And now I know why they have leashes. But
Yeah, I don't know about that. But
no,
I do love New York. I do want to go back. My sister still has a place in Brooklyn, like I said. I definitely do plan to make at least, have a place there. Maybe not right this second, but in the future. And it would be more, I would definitely put them in, private school, and help them get to know, that world of things, so they can have both sides, this perspective of, you know, um, suburbia, I guess, and city life,
Yeah,
right?
LA is very suburban. There's no center. There's so many different neighborhoods, and it is great weather, and it has its great vibe. You have the beaches, you have the natural beauty out here, which you don't necessarily have in New York. It's a concrete jungle in New York, as they've said, and but you do have historically. There's been a lot of culture,
So
education.
much.
Um, there's healthcare, great hospitals. But there's great hospitals out in California as well, and great colleges. Um, but I think there's more diversity in New York. New York as like the melting pot of the world, and you have all these different cultures that have mixed. But right now, there's been, it's
It'll come back.
questionable whether or not it's going to come back. That was my
It will.
next
It will
question. What do you
100.
think?
I
Is it going to come
100.
back or not?
If I were going to make a bet, I would
Mhm,
100% bet it's coming back. It
mhm.
definitely will. I
But
know
it's
I'm
going to
going to
look
come back
different.
to
It'll
it.
look different, right? It's going to be younger because now the rent's so cheaper. So younger people are starting to move in, as we talked before, that people are moving into the Manhattan where they couldn't afford it before, and now that remote uh, jobs are becoming more remote, it's really accelerated what was already happening with people becoming gig workers, which is great for the technology that you've developed because that helps independent contractors and experts. But I think New York, we don't know what's going to happen to New York. Nobody does. I mean,
Well,
right
everybody
now,
loves New York. I mean, how could you not love New York? And at the end of the day, this has just shown us where the inefficiencies are. So now we're all motivated because I have a special place in my heart for New York. And I know when I went back to visit a couple of months ago, I was like, every time I go back, I know it's different, but I'm like, I long to stay. And what keeps me coming back out to LA is my children. But I know that once they get a little bit older, my vision is to definitely at least have a place there, if not have some sort of permanency, at least half of the year or something, because there's no place quite like it, right? There's really no place in the world quite like it.
no, it's
Um,
great for kids for educational purposes to bring them to the zoos, to the museums, to the restaurants, bring them to Chinatown, to Little Italy,
Yeah,
to
it's
a
like
real
different
Jewish day.
worlds in a very small place, right? You can literally expose them to all kinds of cultures, in a day.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
No, and the history, there's a lot more history. I mean, in LA, if something's more than 50 years old, it's considered historic, Wow. In New York, it's had oh, this has been around for 300 years. But
yeah,
no,
I
I
remember
think
being a kid and I remember being in Texas and going to the Statue of Liberty and going all the way up the stairs, right? And going to the little tiny windows at the top and being like, I thought this would be open or maybe a breeze or anything, and then climbing all the way back down. But then when I went there as an adult and after 9/11, you can only go to the feet, right? I was so bummed out. I was like, oh man, now I really want to climb those stairs, to just
yeah,
those little things, you don't think, then you're like, oh yeah, now I really want that. So it's kind of funny how it works, but yeah, no, I miss all the food. Like I thought I was in love with, I thought my favorite food was Thai food. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to take a trip to Thailand because I just love Thai food. And then I went to Thailand and I have authentic Thai food. I was like, nope, I like Thai fusion. I think I like Thai fusion.
it's better in New York. Yeah, everything's better in New York. Yeah, when I get back to New York after being away for a while, I always feel like I should kiss the ground, but then I think again.
Then you think you remember your sandals in the summertime, and you're like, I don't know
Yeah,
about
no, there's
that.
a lot of pets on the streets in New York. Leave it
Yeah.
at that. And but thank you so much, Jessica, for your great stories, great memories about what brought you to New York and what would bring you back, because I think people will go back eventually. It may take some time. It may take a couple of years, but it's like a boomerang effect. Once you've been there, you want to come back and at least make a pilgrimage. I know people in LA who grew up in New York, and have had kids in LA who still sound like they're from New York. They have the New York accents, and they bring them back once a year to the mothership, and to the restaurants, and to see the family. And
well, it's also a different kind of people too, right? It's a different kind of people.
they're more competitive. Yeah. In LA, the people are sort of laid back, and
well, it's even
where
more
did
than
I park
that.
my car?
No, but it's even more than that. There's an energy, there's a passion, right? There's a drive, there's pride in what you're doing. You're genuine to that. When you have a conversation, it's not all sensational. You know that when people are speaking to you, they're really talking. Like, I felt like when I was in New York, it was more about like, oh, what do you do for a living? Like, if somebody tries to get to know you, right? Oh, what do you do for a living? Because that's what you're doing all the time. And in LA, it was more like, okay, who do you know? And when I first came here, I was like, I know me, myself, and I. They're like, no, but who are you here with? I was like, I'm here with me. So it's definitely like a different culture, and getting to know people, and just like how they convey their messaging, and how they like who they are as a person, right? It's a different kind of person. So yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Jessica Baker. And she's the founder of adalign.com and livesalign.com, and also alignsigns.com. And so thank you so much. And I'm sure one day we will be in New York together, and we will paint the town, and we'll show the kids all of our favorite spots that we visited
I'm
in the
looking
past.
forward to that.
Yeah,
Yes.
same here. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You
And
too.
keep swinging, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Okay.